For 5 years now, Zion Williamson has been heavily scrutinized by the national media. For the most part, at least until recently, local media in New Orleans and the Pelicans fan base, we have constantly come to his defense. It has been the same tired narrative in the national media that we have been hearing for 5 years now. Zion Williamson doesn't want to be in New Orleans. That's why he's not motivated. That's why he's not in shape. He doesn't want to be there. If Zion didn't want to be in New Orleans, all he has to do is walk into David Griffin's office and demand a trade. Leak the story to the media, he's gone. We have seen it happen countless times in the past with superstar players in the NBA. Anthony Davis forced his way out of New Orleans. Dwight Howard forced his way out of Orlando. Kyrie Irving forced his way out of Cleveland. Zion Williamson being unmotivated, it has absolutely nothing to do with him being in New Orleans. It's got everything to do with Zion Williamson. I don't know what the hell's going on with this kid. For the longest time, I have defended him, but we have reached a point where I can no longer defend the indefensible. What happened Thursday night in that embarrassing beatdown where an elderly man by NBA standards and LeBron James ran circles around dudes that are 15 years younger than he is? This is going to be the turning point of the Pelicans season and possibly Zion Williamson's career. This team is either going to be humbled and respond positively to that pathetic performance and come out with something to prove the rest of the season, or, and I hope this doesn't happen, but knowing the mentality of the stars on this team wouldn't surprise me if it did. The Pelicans are going to fold, and the discussions over the summer, the offseason, is going to be about blowing up this roster and starting over. Whatever happens going forward, the responsibility, it is going to fall on Zion Williamson. It's time to either step up or step aside. The rest of this season is going to determine whether Zion Williamson is a superstar, whether Zion Williamson is a leader, or whether Zion Williamson is the biggest bust in recent NBA history. If this dude continues to struggle, he could go down as one of the biggest busts in NBA history. But KC, his stats are pretty good. He's averaging over 20 points a game. I don't give a shit about his stats. Stats are meaningless. They never give you the full story. I actually watch the games. But if you want to focus on stats, Zion's also averaging less than 6 rebounds a game. This dude should be an automatic double-double every night. With his talent, Zion Williamson, he should be flirting with a triple-double. Instead, there are some nights during the regular season where Zion Williamson looks like a role player. This dude completely vanished during the in-season tournament. I'm trying not to overreact to his performance against the Kings and the Lakers, trying to give Zion Williamson the benefit of the doubt here. He has never played in games of this magnitude, at least in his NBA career. I know he's been in the league for 5 years now, but because of all the injuries, Zion is really in his 3rd season. My problem with Zion Williamson is the lack of effort. My biggest problem with him is the lack of giving a fuck. Zion looks like he just doesn't care. For the longest time, I have disagreed with the national media when they criticize Zion over his lack of effort. Tuesday night, after the Pelicans beat the Kings, Charles Barkley destroyed Zion Williamson on national television, called him lazy, said he was out of shape, accused Zion of being lackadaisical, not trying hard enough. And at the time, I disagreed with Charles Barkley. And some of the Pels groups that I'm in, I defended Zion Williamson. Brandon Ingram just took over. We didn't need Zion as much. He played well defensively. 3 days later, I ran out of excuses. In the biggest game of his NBA career, against the face of the NBA for the last 2 decades, in a game that could have been a passing of the torch moment, a 23-year-old Zion Williamson was completely outclassed by LeBron James, who's old enough to be his father. In a game where you shouldn't need anything extra to get motivated, Zion Williamson comes out completely unmotivated. Now, it would be one thing if this were a one-off situation, just a bad game. It would be one thing if Zion looked consistently motivated throughout the season and this moment against the Lakers was just too big for him. But this has happened with far too much consistency this season. I can't tell you how many times I have heard Antonio Daniels say, Jose Alvarado and Najee Marshall supplied the energy in that first half. That should never be the case. Jose Alvarado's making $1.7 million this season. Najee Marshall, $1.3 million. Why are Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram relying on role players to get them motivated to play? Yesterday, Stephen A. Smith, he addressed this situation with Zion Williamson on his podcast. Now, if Stephen A. had ran with this narrative at any point over the last 3, 4, maybe 5 years, I would have criticized him for it and come to the defense of Zion. I would have written it off as the national media once again trying to start shit in New Orleans, trying to get Zion Williamson to leave the Pelicans. He doesn't get along with management. He doesn't get along with David Griffin. Who fucking cares? Michael Jordan didn't get along with Jerry Krause. Hell, most of the roster in Chicago didn't get along with Jerry Krause. That didn't stop the Bulls from winning 6 championships. It is not uncommon for superstar players in the NBA to not get along with the front office. But with Zion Williamson, there's something deeper going on here. Watch for yourself.
He looks fat. Zion Williamson went to the free throw line the other day en route while LeBron James had dropped 30 in 3 quarters and had completely dominated and looked in peak physical condition and looked like an absolute stud and superstar and marquee. Zion Williamson, who's more than 15 years younger, but 40 pounds heavier, went to the free throw line. I saw a belly. When he took a deep breath, his belly bounced. That kind of belly. I mean, damn. Damn. What's up, Zion? It better not you got your ass kicked, losing by 44 points playing semifinals. Did nothing to lead and galvanize your team. Did nothing to show the man-child that you are and to take over. But you look like you showed up to the game having just ate a buffet. I said the buffet, like you ate the damn table. He's fat.
This is outrageous. Stephen A. Smith is a fattest. He's fat-phobic. You can label this with whatever woke boner word makes you comfortable. You can accuse Stephen A. of being a fattest or being fat-phobic, which always confused me. If you have a phobia, it means that you're afraid of something. Over the past couple of weeks, I have yet to see anyone in the NBA afraid of Zion Williamson. If anything, if anyone was afraid the other night, Zion was afraid of LeBron James. But you can accuse Stephen A. Smith of being fat-phobic, but us normal people, we call it something different. What Stephen A. said about Zion Williamson, we call it the truth. This entire offseason, I kept hearing these delusions of grandeur from the Pelicans front office. Zion's in amazing shape. He spent the entire offseason in New Orleans. He's playing with himself in multiple ways. His arms are the size of Lizzo. Zion's in great shape. Me being the dumbass that I am, I actually believed it. Going into the regular season, I had my girlfriend excited. Been telling her all summer that Zion was committed, Zion was in great shape. Zion Williamson is her least favorite player in New Orleans. She likes Brandon Ingram, but her favorite players are Jose Alvarado and Herb Jones, with an honorable mention going to Trey Murphy. Why? Why are her favorite players the role players instead of the superstar players? Well, on a night-to-night basis, the role players, they are giving 100%. They're working the hardest. Going into the season, I had my girlfriend convinced that Zion Williamson was recommitted. Zion was in the best shape of his career. First game of the season, Zion walks onto the court. She looks over to me and says, "This fat fuck ain't in shape. He hasn't been playing basketball this summer. Looks like he's been eating basketballs." If I didn't know any better, if I was a parishioner of Woke United Methodist, when Zion Williamson made his pregnancy announcement, I would have thought that he was the one that was pregnant. This dude isn't overweight just in NBA standards. Zion Williamson is overweight, period. He looks like he's trying to be a backup dancer for the Lizzo. However, that is not my biggest concern with Zion. His weight is not my biggest problem. Matter of fact, with the schedule easing up in December, I'm not overly concerned with the Pelicans missing the playoffs. We have 2 talented stars. We have a deep bench. I'm not concerned with the Pelicans not making the playoffs at this point. My biggest concern is the mentality of Zion Williamson. I am not seeing the killer instinct that I saw from him last season. I'm not seeing the drive. I'm not seeing a leader. CJ McCollum is a veteran leader. Larry Nance, same thing. And that's great. That's great. But that is not enough. The Pelicans need leadership from their stars. One of them has to decide, I am the captain of this team. Can't be both. There can only be one. Bill Parcells used to say all the time, if you have two quarterbacks, you have no quarterback. It's the same thing here. If you have two captains, if you have two leaders, you don't have a leader. Who is it going to be in New Orleans? Who is going to step up? Is it going to be Brandon Ingram or is it going to be Zion Williamson? I have seen flashes of leadership in Brandon Ingram. I'm not seeing it in Zion Williamson. This season is critical for the rest of his NBA career. I'm listening to Fox Sports Radio the other day. I think it was Chris Broussard and Rob Parker. Rob Parker said, until this in-season tournament, I forgot that Zion Williamson was still playing in the NBA. Now, maybe that was hyperbole. Maybe Rob Parker was exaggerating or over-exaggerating, but I don't think it's far from the truth. On a national level, Zion Williamson is being forgotten. It has gotten so bad, some fans in New Orleans, they want Zion to be traded. The problem is, you can't get anything for him. His value has dropped significantly. Whether they like it or not, Zion Williamson and the Pelicans, they are stuck in a bad marriage. Pel's front office is leaking stories to the media claiming that Zion's not listening, Zion's not following his diet, which to me is a sign of a poorly run organization. But at the same time, I completely understand their frustration. What is it going to take for this kid to be motivated? Changing scenery? That is not going to change his mentality. If you're lazy in New Orleans, if you're tempted in New Orleans, you think you're not going to be tempted in New York City? Hell, we just saw what happened when they were in Las Vegas. Entire team looked hungover. Looked like Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson were stoned at the pregame press conference. If your star players are not taking things seriously, neither will the role players. The role players are going to follow the leadership or lack thereof of the superstars. Zion is on the verge of becoming the biggest bust in the NBA. Now, there have been busts in the past. Kwame Brown, Greg Oden, Adam Morrison, I think that kid was from Gonzaga. But none of those guys came in with the hype of Zion Williamson. This kid was supposed to be the next LeBron James. He was supposed to be the face of the NBA for the next 10, 15 years. Instead, here we are 5 years later talking about the real possibility of Zion Williamson being a bust. But give me your thoughts on this. Stephen A. Smith accuses Zion Williamson of being the male Lizzo. Charles Barkley and Shaq accuse him of being lazy. This past week, the Pelicans played 2 games on the global stage. Zion Williamson completely disappeared. He shouldn't have even bothered showing up. Now, was the moment too big for him? And is this something that he will learn from? Or is all hope lost? Will Zion go down as the biggest bust in the history of the NBA? Now, I know I'm biased. I hope Zion recovers. I've seen greatness in Zion Williamson. I have seen him dominate the NBA, but I got to be honest with you, I am starting to lose faith in Zion Williamson. I haven't lost all of it yet, and I'm trying not to overreact here, but I'm starting to lose hope. But let me know what you think. Sound off in the comments below. Like, subscribe, share the video. I appreciate your support. Best way to contact me is by email at btlkc84@gmail.com, KC_BTL84 on Twitter. I'll see you guys later.